But you could always tell your kin folks when you were up in Southern Virginia because you would close your eyes in a room and find the loudest speakers and they'd be your kin folks. So I don't typically have a problem with volume. I'm glad to be here following behind some great people. So number 3 up, my heart's been racing as I've been sitting there. And thankful for the 7 minutes I have. I also, in addition to being loud, I talk fast. So if you really want to talk more, you're going to have to sit at my tables. That's just how it's going to go. Got it? In Family Justice Center work, we use the term dream big, start small. And I think that analogy really, I learned that when I was starting Family Justice Center work, but actually that's kind of been a story or theme throughout my life. I'm from Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, grew up in a town less than 10,000. Heard of someone one time who went to this place called Florida State, and I said, I think I'm going to go to college there. And I was first generation college in my family, and having my parents divorced young, I got in-state tuition either place. My grandfather said he paid for me to get there, and I was a good negotiator even at a young age. I could tell you a story about selling bunnies later in 2nd grade, but however, I found my way to Florida State, which found my way to really good mentorship and supervision. And my greatest mentor at Florida State was a faculty member. He was 79 years old. He was a psychologist, he was an attorney, and he was a longtime professor at Florida State. And he took time with me, and I took energy around that time. And I said, I'm going to be a psychologist. And he said, no, Catherine. You don't want to be a psychologist. You want to be a counselor. And I said, why? And he said, because you see the lens, life is so good, and things are about wellness and health, and you have this systems view of things. And I think you'd be better in the health and wellness arena than you would in the treatment arena. And I said, okay. So I did some work with my sorority, traveled around doing risk management, came here to Greensboro and worked for the Episcopal Church of North Carolina over at St. Andrews doing youth ministry for the state. I was there for a while. Applied to UNCG, they let me in. I joke because I've won several awards at UNCG and I was a waitlisted student. And I'm like, aren't they glad they let me in? A couple early career awards off a waitlist because again, dream big, start small. And I found my way to Davidson County, North Carolina, where I started out as my master's at UNCG is in marriage and family counseling. And I started an internship there, my very first client on my very first day. And mind you, when you're a student intern in mental health, you know for sure you're going to wreck somebody because you feel like a wreck when someone's sitting across from you telling you hard stuff. And my very first client was a 36-year-old woman who'd come into counseling. And typically, if you don't have insurance, you get the intern. And she was, that's what happens, right? I'm Beth. Dr. Mulberry knows that well. Okay, it's funny because it's the truth. So anyway, she sits across from me and she starts wailing. I mean, deep belly wailing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all the alarms in my head are going off. How can I help the person who's wailing? And she cried almost the entire time. I hardly get anything out of her. Ultimately, what she was able to share with me is that she had recently had a hysterectomy and she was feeling out of control. And I said, well, what makes you feel out of control? And she said, it's like something wasn't unlocked inside of me. And I've been remembering my grandfather who sexually abused me. And while she was in counseling, it's because she was thinking of having thoughts of suicide because she was having thoughts of hurting her own children. And what we know about the connection between mental and emotional health and physical health is there is a connection. Things can get unlocked. And as we age, things get unlocked that we've repressed. And that, to this date, has been the longest therapy I've ever done with anybody. I saw her 27 sessions. And my supervisor, 30 years in the business, his ear, I didn't know this, he was standing next to the wall. We shared a wall, and he could hear her wailing. And when I got out of there, and I was like, oh God, I've ruined her life. And I'm sitting in his office, I'm all a mess. And he has this smile on his face, and he says, Catherine. And I said, yeah. And he said, I've never met an intern. And I can know clinicians in this building for 20 years in the business that probably would have walked out of their office and asked for help. He said, I could hear you. And I spent more time with him, and he said, Catherine, you're pretty good at when people are out of control, you find a way to get calm. And so that's what started this journey. I tell people I didn't go into the field of violence and abuse because that was what my mission was. I wasn't a grassroots advocacy driven, which many people are who work with hurting people. But it was one of those things that just kind of found me. And so my youngest client to date has been a 3-year-old boy. My oldest has been an 87-year-old survivor of sexual violence. And I was doing that work in Davidson County, and then they decided they should hire me, and then I became the director of the crisis program, and I started a transitional housing program, and really started bringing in some resources into Lexington because it was under-resourced. And UNCG called me again, my good friend Dr. Christine Murray, and she said, Catherine, there's this thing going on in Greensboro called the Family Justice Center, and it's the ticket for you. And I said, I just had a kid, after a second kid. And when you have a kid, things don't work right either, especially it took me a while, because I just had a second kid, and UNCG said a couple, then someone else I knew from the police department, then someone else I knew in my faith community called me and said, there's this thing happening in Greensboro, but they need the right leader, and I think you're it. And there was a roadblock to the story because it was working for government. And I had been in nonprofit, which comes with flexibility, so I was a little hesitant about going to work for Guilford County. And 7 months later, which is how long it took me, the interview process, which was a story of government and hiring. And I joined Guilford County in July of 2014 in our community leadership, which included the chief of police, the sheriff's office, the elected clerk, family services CEO Tom Campbell. It included legal services, legal aid, children's law. All these agencies had been sitting around a table for about 2 years saying Greensboro and Guilford County's got a problem. And the problem was that more people were being killed by domestic violence in our community than anywhere else in the state of North Carolina. And in 2013, one of those people killed was a school teacher. A school teacher who had gone to get help, got confused about where to go, threw her paperwork in the trash on the courthouse plaza, and went home and was killed by her partner. So we knew we had a systems problem because when all these agencies looked, when EMS and sheriff and police and social services looked, they said, look, we've got all these employees working on this issue. We're spending all this money. And it's that kind of analogy of we're spending money to run the ambulances down the hill, but if we put everything up at the top, we could save some money. And so we knew we had a problem, and our community said, we're going to do something about it. And they went out and said, what are collaborative models that could work? And they chose the Family Justice Center model to be the model that Guilford County would implement. And in short, that's a one-stop shop for child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and elder abuse. And so our community leaders said, we're going to put it all together. We had commissioners and city council members. I mean, really everybody from top to bottom said, we're going to do this thing. And what we know about collaboration is if it was easy, we would already be doing it. Because it's easier to work with people who think like I think, do like I do, like what I like, or if I pay them, then they have to do what I say. And so what the county says, it brought me along, so we got this big dream, Catherine, make this Family Justice Center come true, and in Family Justice Center work, there's a fine line between vision and hallucination, and a lot of days I thought this community was hallucinating as I was driving back and forth to Lexington, thinking about how are we going to do it, how are we going to put cops and social workers and advocates, all these people in one place so that when someone needs help, they walk through one set of doors. They get an integrated intake, meaning the person doing the intake says, I got your back and I'll carry the burden. It's my job to go to each agency in here and say, hey, Catherine's in room 209. This is what she needs today. So Catherine doesn't have to tell it 6 times. And then Catherine's going to get child care for her child if I have one. It's going to be treated with dignity and respect and be in a place that looks good, feels good, and smells good. It's not a line at DSS or a line at the police department where criminals are in this line and victims are in this line. And so in 2015, the Family Justice Center opened. We started out with 45 professionals from 12 different disciplines. We're right down on Green Street, just a couple blocks down. And we've grown. We have an office in High Point now. Our Greensboro office between Greensboro and High Point since 2015. Some big things have happened. We've served over 60,000 people have come there for a visit. We average about 13,000 visitors a year. When someone comes to the door, they get help with 5 different agencies. We've been able to solve big systems problems because when collaboration starts working well, and what makes it work, it's relationships. And relationships take a lot of work. And I think the magic that we have going is that our staff, there's people whose job it is to make the relationships work. So the county, that's the role we play, is we kind of build the relationships with partners, we make the relationships with clients and connect the dots, and if someone falls through the cracks, we kind of lift them back up and re-navigate it. And so we've been able to do some great things. Like, for example, in the first 6 months of the Family Justice Center opening, the #1 unmet need was access to attorneys about legal advice. Most people get access to an attorney when they're in crisis after they've already started a plan. So after they filed a restraining order, after the police have been at their home, after they've initiated some emergency process. So I literally walked down the street a couple of blocks into Elon stores, asked to see the dean, and I said, we've got this idea, and we want to do a legal clinic. And help Elon Law write the biggest grant they've ever received in law school history, and they started an emergency legal services clinic, one of its kind. Actually, the lead attorney for that clinic, attorney Margaret Dudley, just this week was named North Carolina Bar Association Legal Legends of Color Award. And some of that was attributed to her work at the Family Justice Center. We've been able to do other things like bringing in a medical clinic with Cone and solving big problems, because what happens is when multiple disciplines get together and we begin to have a shared goal and we have shared problems, we can address problems that could not be addressed individually because they just seem too big. And isn't that what the community should expect? And in my opinion, not to think of Guilford County government as I flip my badge around, it's not the role that government should play, is bringing systems together. And, we do it a little differently because some people say, hey, Captain, you have police there, or hey, Captain, you've got this there, you have Captain, you've got that there. We are very diverse in the agencies, but we really see us as an opportunity to change existing systems. So we're not trying to sort of tear down those systems, even though some could be torn down and rebuilt, but we're taking the systems that are in place and helping to transform how they intersect with one another. And that's how we can help 60,000 people. That's how we can take processes that would have taken 2 weeks and get them accomplished in 2 hours. And there's 2 wins to strong collaboration. The first is that people get access to help in a very much easier way. And the second is that the helpers are able to do more with less. And I was saying COVID, and we haven't really talked that much about COVID, and the Family Justice Center stayed fully open in COVID. Before COVID, we had dropped the domestic violence homicide rate in Greensboro by 90%. And that was during a time where we had record-setting homicides in Greensboro multiple years in a row. The homicide rate had doubled, less than 5%. Of the 60,000 survivors that have been through our doors, only 2 have been killed, and that is amazing. And COVID has said a couple things, and then my concerns around COVID are, number one, is that the people on the front lines are really tired, and they're really kicked down, and they're feeling fatigued, and they're leaving their jobs, and the burnout rate is a real crisis. And how we're going to help helpers, because we don't have helpers to help. We know people need more care than ever before. Accountability has gotten really weak, and when people reach out for help and the systems of care don't hold the person who does harm accountable, it will decrease people reaching out for help. And so it's this balance of relationships and trust and how that is have to be negotiated. And then it's on all of us. We've done a really good job making domestic and sexual violence a those people issue. And I think it's a we issue. Each and every one of us in this room knows someone, even if they've never told you. We are all connected in some capacity to someone who's experienced either child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, or will experience elder abuse. So the only way we're going to do those things is through collaboration. Now, last thing I'll say, and I talk about collaboration on the spectrum, and if I had a PowerPoint, I showed it. And today I recreated the photo. I was laughing at myself in my office, which sometimes happens, and people are like, what's happening? Is there's spectrum of collaboration. Most of us collaborate by networking, right? We're here tonight, and I have business cards. I'm going to pass them out. And the photo that I normally show is what my business card drawer looks like. And it's like an explosion of business cards. It's colorful. You never know whose card's on top. You can shake it up, pull it out. It's like a game show in my office with the business cards. And before I came to work at the Family Justice Center, I referred people places all the time. Oh, just go down to the domestic violence shelter. You should just go on down to such and such. And I realized I'd never been to any of those places. I may have been to a couple of them because I knew somebody there. And so this is my challenge, because the first step in collaboration is networking, where we know the resources. And not only have we been there, we know somebody that works there. So I can say, hey, call Dulce because she's got it going on. And if I say that, people go, oh, wait, she knows Dulce. She's got it going on. Because what we're really working toward, and what our ultimate goal is, when we think about the long-range view of health, when we think about transforming systems and how we take a model like the Family Justice Center and replicate it, is we have to be working at a relationship level where we can let the number 2 reasons people don't collaborate is ego and money. They keep us from doing the right thing all the time. So if we can move past that and look at how can I enhance your capacity to be your best? How can I share resources? How can we exchange information in a way that I'm at my best when you're at your best? And that is our goal each and every day at the Family Justice Center when it comes to helpers being their very best. And I have had hallway conversations where I don't see people their best, and I just have to gently shine that mental health mirror. Hey, what's happening here? Let's talk through this before we get back in there. But that's what we want to do. And so that's what we're trying to do through the spectrum of collaboration through the Family Justice Center. So with that, I will stop and appreciate the opportunity to be here and share about the center. Appreciate Lindsay for inviting me. Thank you.